Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Great to have you with us, and great to have this all-star panel around the big green table, starting with Wendy Wiese from the Big 550 KTRS, the media veteran herself. There she is, along with one of our founders from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com, Bill McClellan. Along with another founder, Mr. Ray Hartmann from the Big 550 KTRS and, of course, the Riverfront Times. Can't forget Alvin Reid from the St. Louis American, 590, 97.1, and STLmag.com. And I'm sorry to say, we had a loss to the Donnybrook alumni family last week when we lost Ashlyn Tate, who was a production assistant and floor director here, after he arrived in St. Louis because he lived in New Orleans and then came here after Hurricane Katrina. Studied at UMSL, worked here at the 9 Network, and then later became the executive director of Boys Hope, Girls Hope. He lost his life last Friday, and we are just so sad about this terrible loss. And so our thoughts and prayers are to the family of Ashlyn Tate at this time. Bill, we're going to start our conversation with you and talk about Steve Stenger, who was the county executive until he resigned and, of course, was convicted for theft of honest services. Tomorrow, in the courtroom of Catherine Perry in Federal District Court here in Missouri, he's going to get sentenced. The low number would be 36 months. The high number would be 47. And I thought it was interesting that Gene McNary said, this is the former Republican county executive, that he has sent a letter to Catherine Perry, the judge, and he thinks that it's a waste to put a nonviolent, white-collar criminal in prison when he could be doing community service. And you know what? That does make some sense on some levels, doesn't it?
No, not really. I mean, he's got a heart of gold at Gene McNary. But this idea that white-collar crime really shouldn't be punished by sending somebody away is wrong. I mean, we have prisons for people who commit serious misdeeds, and just because it's white-collar crime, the idea that, well, we're wasting, he should be doing public service. What would Steve Stenger do? I mean, he's an accountant, but I don't think a lot of people would want Steve deep into their books. So I think if you commit a white-collar crime, you should have to do some time.
And I think, look, any hope of him not getting the full sentence and a day, if they could do that, was erased by the memo from the prosecutor that detailed his attitude toward everybody in St. Louis County, and that's everybody especially who voted for him, okay? A lot of I won't say innocent people that weren't involved in any kind of this pay for play and all that, maybe trusted the guy, but they voted for him, okay? And he laughed in all of our faces. And it goes back to the very beginning. I thought it was racially tainted, the campaign he ran against Charlie, and then all this other that, but even I, who just no fan of the man's at all, was shocked and disturbed by what I read. And that's it.
Well, I thought the most shocking thing was when he was going to get Sam Page, who's a physician, fired from his hospital because he didn't like his politics, and he was going to fire people who didn't give grants and contracts to his donors.
Laughing at the fact that
he was going to. I'm sorry, he was going to blow up. He was so excited about the possibility of blowing up the county council because of Better Together. The fact that he was the poster child for Better Together should give everybody who supported Better Together pause and a half. I mean, I think he reads like a character out of Dickens. He reads like a character to me. It was like I couldn't even believe, because he was always kind of quiet. Now we know why.
And laughing at the fact that I don't go to work.
I don't go to work.
2 months.
I don't go to work.
I raise money and they still vote for me, the suckers.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Well, I didn't hold that against him so much. I mean,
do.
just because a politician doesn't hold the public in high regard, I didn't.
That's
care
fine.
so
You mean
much
the
about
old,
that.
I wouldn't want to be a part of any club that would have me as a member thing, maybe. I mean, I get that. I mean, I get that. But still,
What video
he
game?
is-
What video game were we the people
Okay.
paying him to play?
Yeah.
I want to know that.
So I have the dubious distinction of having defended him more than anybody on the panel, and I was equally shocked and disturbed. I'm one of these people who, probably with good reason, hates the way they sound on radio and TV, my voice. But I don't think anybody sounds good on an FBI wiretap. But this was to some amazing new degree of how badly he sounded on the FBI wiretap. It was really stunning, and it would be surprising to me if he, just as a layperson, he certainly seems to deserve the maximum time. I will say this: no one has ever gotten rich betting against Scott Rosenblum in this town. So I'm not making any predictions. It wouldn't shock me if Judge Perry gave him less than the maximum. I think from what we saw, he deserves a maximum. I do think that. One thing that interested me, particularly the Better Together piece, and Tony Messenger had a fabulous column on, really good column this week, talking about the fact that Mr. Singfield gave a large sum of, what was it? $700,000 in dark money to Steve Stenger, and Tony connected the dots to the fact that Mr. Singfield's also involved in the airport privatization issue. And I think that the one thing we should take away from this, and Stenger's done, he's a separate deal. Let's not take from this that, well, okay, now we can go back to there's no relationship in money and politics in this town. There's certainly, to Alvin's point, the one person that stands out in my mind is, where's Bob McClellan now? Because he was the one that was specifically on ads calling out Charlie Dooley. He was specifically calling out Charlie Dooley's integrity, and Charlie Dooley obviously is probably interested.
Maybe
in
he lost on purpose because he saw this train rattling down.
But I will say that Steve Stenger had some dance partners. They keep intimating that there's more investigation. He couldn't, for example, the Better Together thing. He couldn't have done that by himself. Somebody was on, and I'm not talking about Rex specifically, but somebody was on the other side of the agreement.
But that doesn't
he would
mean
be mayor.
that they were accomplices.
Right,
or
it just means they were
complicit.
fools.
It means that they were foolish as the voters were.
It doesn't suggest that they
But
did
I
anything
still-
criminal.
No,
He
Ray's
had-
right.
not a-
Ray's right.
He had people
Who
to
had
work
Better Together had the idea that we would have an unelected Steve Stenger who would be the new Metro mayor for the first 4
I
years.
agree.
Well, I think
Someone
he
in
clearly-
cahoots with Stenger
I
said,
agree.
Clearly
okay, we'll
agrees.
go for that in
may-
exchange for
Charlie,
your support.
I agree
To
100%.
clarify, it doesn't mean they committed a crime.
I didn't say it was criminal,
No, and I'm not
but
either.
it's
but
cahoots.
my point
Cahoots.
is, whether it's Northwest Plaza and the Garners, who don't want to talk right now, or
All right, we're getting a little deep in
no,
that
I'm
now.
saying
All right.
that there were dance partners here.
I
It
still
wasn't
love
just
the
him.
idea, though, of Charlie Dooley escorting Mr. Stenger to his cell. I'm sorry. I
That
do.
would be poetic
I
justice,
do.
yeah. Now, Alvin, I want to ask you about the pension. He's entitled to a pension because he worked as a county employee, I guess, since 2009. But then the county council that he wanted eliminated, and he spared not too many F-bombs while describing how he wanted them gone, kind of like Robert De Niro in The Goodfellas. But anyway, he will not get his pension if the county council's, I guess, actions this week are held up in court, because they passed a measure, the county council did, to deny him his pension. And they did it just before the sentencing, thinking that they got in just enough time before action is taken in court. You think he should get that pension?
Well, look, after everything I just said about Steve Stenger, yeah, I think he should get his pension because
my gosh.
you can't go back after the fact. That what they passed last week on City Council should be a from this day forward. I'm sorry, we elected a crook, okay?
Well, you're a man of principle. The thought of that just makes me completely irate. I mean, really irate. If he is sentenced to the max tomorrow, then to think that he's going to turn around after laughing at the entire region, and as I said, you're a man of principle, and I know that's probably
that's
the
not
right
principle.
thing to do.
He committed a felony
But
on
Tim
the
Fitch-
job.
Yeah. So does that nullify? Is that what
it's a
you're
matter
saying?
of law. I'm sorry. It's a matter of law, more in principle. I mean, I agree with it. I don't know what I think. I generally saw. I remember. I think, like, for example, we had an argument talk about Tim Fitch. You know, when he wanted to, and I thought, you know,
this was Tim Fitch's
no,
idea.
He didn't think wrong, but my point is there was a big argument about whether he could keep his police chief pension and stuff, and I thought he should. I mean, I don't.
Well, this is a bit different where you have a guy who, while he was working and earning his pension, committed criminal acts.
Yeah, I'm
and
not
you can say,
comparing.
we don't want to pay a pension to a public servant who committed these acts while he was being a public servant.
I agree with that, but what I'm trying to say is I tend to err in if you earn it, it's really a matter of law. Is my point. If you earn,
and they changed the law.
Yeah, but I don't think you can go back.
I don't think
you do that retro.
That's why they didn't do it retro. Because he gets sentenced tomorrow.
Okay. And just to
so
correct one thing, when you were talking about this, you said he was convicted and actually pleaded guilty.
Oh,
just
very
in case
well.
somebody
Thank
would
you.
call and complain.
I do believe that the county will probably lose more in court defending this decision than just paying the man.
I will say this:
All right,
if his if restitution is part of this argument, then that could certainly count against his pension.
I think they should have thought about that.
That should definitely count against his pension.
Well, he probably has the
Good
means
development
to
of that.
write a check for the restitution.
Well,
It's
then-
$130,000.
Well, but
Given he had a very lucrative law career prior to his public service.
One of the questions they have to resolve is what the restitution is, and I'm saying that if he wasn't able to make it, then that could be a factor, I would think, toward
All
that.
right, Wendy, I want to ask you about Rod Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois. The president, as if he has nothing else to do, decided to take time out of his busy schedule to suggest that he might commute the sentence. Blagojevich had a pay-to-play scheme where he wanted money in exchange for appointing the successor to U.S. Senator Barack Obama, okay? He got 14 years. He's already served 8. Do you think it's time for him to get out and rejoin his wife, Patty, in the civilian world?
I think it probably is. At the same time, I think people don't always read the fine print. And this is the type of thing I think that could ultimately hurt President Trump. Because if I were,
Hate to see that.
if I know that would break your heart. But I do think it's kind of I think it's a bit of a risk because people are not going to think of the time that he served. I think he did a pretty decent job of vilifying himself. Blagojevich did before he went to prison. I just think it is a political risk.
I think it first of all would be fitting if Trump did it, just because it says what it says about Trump and his friendship and his sympathy for him. I felt at the time that it's all visceral, but I thought he was a bit over-sentenced for 14 years.
Oh, I did too.
Yeah,
I
a lot of
so
people
that
thought it
was my
ridiculous,
reaction.
and I think they should let him out.
My reaction was he was over-sentenced in the first place, but it would be doubly good if it
here's
hurt
the
Trump
problem.
politically.
This is the real problem, though. Trump knows him because
Of
Blago
celebrity.
was on Celebrity Apprentice.
Well, and that's why
and,
I think
just
it's-
because a guy
Right.
is famous and knows the president doesn't mean that his sentence should be commuted, whereas Bob Johnson down the street doesn't know the president and he has no prayer.
But why
but that's-
now is what I'm wanting to
Well,
know.
because
Why-
I'll tell you why.
It's a win.
He kind of, the president kind of had a bad 2 weeks, and
Oh, did he?
let's we got to get their minds someplace else other than this. And look, maybe he leaves in January of 2021. Maybe he leaves in January of 2025. That list of the people that Donald Trump is going to pardon and commute and let go
You think
is
it's
going
gonna
to be
take him
about
a
30,
month?
30 deep. So, he set the stage. So, see, I let him out.
This is a win-win, Charlie. First of all,
winning?
it's a win on both guys. One, the fact that he was over-sentenced. He's already done like 8 years. So it's a win on the kind of justice front. And then on the political front, Trump gets deserved attention for letting a guy go because he was on apprentice.
I really don't think, and I disagree with Wendy on this, that it's going to hurt President Trump. I mean, the
try-
people who
nothing
like
stick-
Trump
nothing
aren't going
sticks
to
to
care at
Trump.
all
Yeah, I'm
about
just
this.
saying
Nothing
about
sticks to
And
Trump.
if-
people
hey,
who are
how about you-
lukewarm.
Ray, what about Ann Wagner? You've pointed out that here we are in 2019.
Yeah.
Next year she runs for re-election, and thus far the Democrats do not have a candidate to run against her next year.
It's really amazing, and people have to understand how the world's changed in this front, both at the on the national level with the way money works. These candidates don't spring up very often for these congressional races like they used to. What's called the DCCC, I forget the exact acronym. And on the Republican side, they identify both sides equally, identify the battleground states, and they actively recruit candidates. It's what they do. It's just what they do. And on both sides, and amazingly to me, the Democrats have identified Mrs. Wagner's seat as one that's vulnerable because it's a metropolitan area seat. That's what they're targeting. And you look at the last 5 or 6 weeks where they had first of all, the attack on AOC, the racist attack on her, and now this horrible, tragic, disgusting gun violence, and you got Ann Wagner, who's a nice person, but she's got an A rating from the NRA. The Democrats are missing a huge opportunity by not having a candidate.
Well, I disagree with you, Ray. I think that the Democrats will have several people chomping at the bit to run.
What are they waiting for? What are they waiting for?
It's early, Ray.
It's not early. It's only a year to the primary. It's
well,
not early at all.
This perpetual
It's late.
candidacy thing, I don't think you need it in a congressional district. I think that,
It's
7 months, a few months before the primary, people are going to step forward.
It's late.
I think Ray has a point because the polls show that suburban Republican women are starting to get tired of the president because of his persona. They might agree with him on tax policy, but they don't like the constant fighting and all that. I think there's an opportunity for a Democratic female candidate against Ann Wagner.
This 5 weeks and recess, instead of having to defend herself against someone pointing out, she gets a vacation.
I miss the days when we didn't even know if the President of the United States was in Washington or not. Do you remember those days when literally it'd be 5 or 6 days between sightings and camera crews and all of that? Having said that, I think we always have to remember these polls were the same ones that said that Hillary Clinton was going to beat him by 30 points.
Right.
So I mean, just because I know that people are already taking stock in some of these polls pre-2020, I just don't know if you can. I don't know if any of them can be trusted.
What do you say?
I don't think anybody, because I live in the district, I don't think anybody in Democrat land out in the district is worrying that there's not a candidate yet. I mean, that's out of sight.
For St. Louis?
Oh, yeah, I know they are. They are. And here's the deal.
Most people are.
I'm talking about the people in politics.
Then somebody.
Then they need to.
They need to speak up.
Going.
My point is this: Court Von Osten ran a first-time race against Ann Wagner,
and got
incumbent. He got beat by. He got 47% of the vote.
And got beat.
Okay.
I mean, but I'm just saying this is
no
like
one knew him, Alvin.
But this is like talking about a sports game. We only lost by 6 points.
Yeah,
but he was a rookie that no one had even. They didn't even know his name. Court Van Osten.
There'll be somebody running.
Somebody will run.
But the question is, they need to raise money.
Bill Haas.
You can't wait to the end.
Well, a
They
minute
need to
ago
be
you were
raising
saying that the
money.
National Party gives money to these
No.
people. They have plenty of time.
They do not have plenty of time.
I want to remind you, last year, Steve Stanger ran against Paul Berry IV. These things happen where there isn't a legitimate candidate.
Well, they're not going to
seems to
concede
happen all
the
the
seat
time.
like the Republicans did. I mean,
But
this is
understand-
way-
Nobody ran against Bob McCullough, but that doesn't mean nobody will run against
Trust
Ann
me.
Wagner.
Okay. Trust
My
me,
point
Bill.
is
We don't
that
care out
until
there.
last cycle,
We-
the Democrats
There's
completely
plenty of
conceded
money.
the seat.
There's plenty of
Okay.
time.
Now we're going to move on to Ladue, which I think is Ann Wagner's district, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and Wendy, I thought there's an interesting story this week in the Post-Dispatch about how some Normandy students had gone to Ladue after their school district, Normandy, lost accreditation. Well, now Normandy has regained accreditation, and Ladue is saying after the kids complete either grade school or middle school, they have to go back to Normandy. And I'm thinking, with the resources we presume Ladue has, wouldn't it be nice to let those kids finish their, at least through 12th grade at Ladue schools?
I think, sure. I mean, it would be a lovely gesture. I mean, I don't know that they would see it quite as cut and dry as you see it. I mean, it's not Christmas Eve, and Ladue, if they make allowances for the kids who came there, they're going to have to make other allowances. I just don't see how legally they can say, oh, but we really love these kids from Normandy. We're not so crazy about, those of you who live in Oakville or where just pick a suburb. But the fact of the matter is, and I thought it was heartbreaking to read these stories of these little people who have gone and, they've made friends and they've done everything they can to fit in. But at the end of the day, and I don't want to sound like, Miss Heartless, but I changed schools several times, and I mean, I know that the jury's still out, but
we're not.
I wasn't.
But this is not a matter of expulsion.
Well, stop it. No, take that back.
was
People
a
are going to
low
believe
blow.
you.
Yes.
People are going to
That
believe
was-
you. No,
that
but
was cold.
I did change schools. We did move, and it's not the end of the
I-
world.
I
I'm going to
think
be.
they can- I
let me
think they
be.
can.
Let me be Mr. Heartless. Okay, I'll back you up. I don't like when the state government tells a school district when you can start school or what you need to teach or all that. These are all decisions that your local jurisdiction must do. The end of the voluntary transfer program has been coming. This has been coming for years. It's here now.
Right.
Okay? And how every school district reacts to that is their business. And I think that while I feel bad for these kids that want to continue on at Ladue or whatever school they may be at, Kirkwood included, which is also in Ann Wagner's district. You left us out. It's up to that. It's up to that district. And also, importantly, you can't just decide that if you can get a ride here, we will pay for your schooling, okay? Because
a
then
dangerous
that's lawsuit city.
precedent.
And that's coming from every municipality that has a not
I think it's heartless city. The kids have friends. There aren't that many of
But
them.
Charlie, what are they supposed
and
to
this
do?
Is,
Well,
this is such an issue that really is at the core of what's going on in St. Louis, where you cross a boundary.
I am not denying
your
any of that,
educational
Charlie.
prospects change a lot, even though I know they're making a lot of progress in the Normandy schools. Clayton and its superintendent, Sean Doherty, they figured out a way to make it work there. Ladue could
And
do the same thing.
I agree with Charlie, and I was just going to say the same thing. And I'm biased because my kids are Clayton, okay? But they can and they should. They can do it. They don't have to. And certainly, I think we could all agree that it shouldn't be. And nobody's arguing Normandy schools. I happen to be a fan of how they're trying, but I'm not arguing. For as long as Normandy doesn't have to pay the
I mean,
cost.
these are the parents of the kids who don't want the kids.
I'm not criticizing. I think the
They-
parents
they
are absolutely
don't want the
fine.
kids to have to go to Normandy.
No, I
right?
think the parents are fine wanting their kids to stay in Ladue, and I'm saying that the Ladue can and should do it in this case.
Okay.
And if they don't want to, that's up to them. But Clayton did, and there's a way to
I
work.
needed more deeper explanation as to how that's working out. And also, keep in mind, some things work because there aren't any parents in the district that are opposed to it. And the second that somebody pipes up and says like, "Oh no," then that'll get rethought.
Well,
I don't
that
think
could
anybody
happen. That
should
could
be
happen. I
opposed.
acknowledge that. There's always that parent. Now, Alvin, I want to ask you about Creve Coeur. It's actually trying to get some taxes from people who live there and who have services like Netflix and Hulu, which I guess heretofore have not been taxed. Do you think that if I have a Netflix subscription and I live in Creve Coeur, I should be paying taxes on it?
In lieu of gambling, yes, I do.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, because look, it's just like the AT&T and the phone companies and all that used to get by, and then they had to pay a tax, and municipalities are reaping a lot of money from that. Now, if that's passed on to the consumer, I wouldn't be surprised, but you got to start. And no more free. Everybody wants to tax Amazon and all the online things and whatnot. Well, we can't because we passed a law that said like, oh no more sales taxes.
Now that you mention it, municipalities do not tax Amazon. The state does, but the municipalities
Right.
don't.
So how smart are we? It's look, tax them, get the money, and then figure out if it costs the consumer more after you do it.
I disagree because I have had it up to here with sales taxes. And when a company moves in there, that company will get those sales taxes exempted.
Well, what about the people who own the brick and mortar stores,
Yeah,
Charlie, and have been paying taxes for years and years, and all of a sudden people can buy it on Amazon and not pay any taxes? That's not very fair to the brick and mortar guy.
I do agree with you. But with Hulu and Netflix, who's hurting here? Who's losing out? I mean, who's the guy paying the taxes that is losing business to Hulu and
Wait,
Netflix?
hold
Well, the
I
point
got it.
about, I don't. I hate to do this to you, but I agree with both of these guys, and I don't try not
thank
to.
you, Ray.
But I'm just saying, because finally not the only pro-tax person, but absolutely, you talk about an unfair, on the bricks and mortar thing in general.
No, there's no disagreement
but
there.
in this case, there's no reason, if it's possible, don't other places tax these folks? The Netflixes?
They probably do.
Let me say,
Why
as
are
a
we
pretty much
not doing
retired
it?
person, Netflix is an important thing.
And you should pay.
It's a
You should pay through the
necessity,
nose.
not a luxury,
You
right.
should pay through the nose.
And also, I have to pay. Wait, I have DirecTV. We have to pay tax.
Right.
Okay, so why shouldn't Hulu?
But let me ask you this. With DirecTV, how is it? Because that's a satellite service,
Yes,
right?
right.
Where does the municipality where you live, Kirkwood, God's gift to municipalities, where does it, how does it justify taxing a satellite service?
Well, because it's coming through Kirkwood's airwaves.
Oh.
It's and
Have you guys not read the newspapers? People have no money out there, and you're trying to take more money out of
I thought the
people's
economy is
pockets.
supposed to be so
well,
great.
I'm not denying that it might create an expense for consumers in these different municipalities, but I'm saying it should be taxed.
All of this is shaking out. This new frontier in terms of the media, and you've got all these different media companies at war with each other, and you can't see CBS programming on certain satellite providers. So there's a lot to come, I think.
Well put. Let's see what people had to say about last week's show as we go to the old mailbag. All those millennials with their $80,000 salaries will pay back any tax breaks by hitting the bars and restaurants on Washington Avenue, plus adding riders and eyeballs to Metrolink. Thank you, Matt Conway of St. Louis. And we heard from Tom Kasprovich, who wrote, I have a topic you can talk about. Here it is. I don't get why every year all the TV news media have to bring up the anniversary of the Michael Brown shooting. Are they going to do it every year for the next 50? You can write us, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. We love those emails and those tweets. Hashtag Donnybrook STL, which will be read soon. Don't forget to listen to us on our podcast. Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Not on Netflix or Hulu yet. Or maybe we are. I have no idea if we are not. Ask Bill.
You pay tax
Hey,
if it is.
You can call in and share your opinions when Ray Hartman and Miss Heartless take your phone calls.
Oh,
well,
He's not
he is.
expelled.
No.
Take that back.
That's
She's
right.
on,
Wendy Wiese and Ray.
she's on after you
Yeah,
tonight.
that's so true.
that's right.
She gets the last word. The rest of us will see you next week at this time. Don't go away.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Ooh, it is hot tonight, and I am sitting next to the coolest guy in town, Mr. Ray Hartman.
Yikes.
It is Donnybrook, your
Gonna
turn.
adjust your sets.
We hope you enjoyed the program, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Let's
So
go to
give us a
Andrew
call.
in Waterloo.
Hi, Andrew.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you, and good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I would just like to make the comment that as a resident of the state of Illinois and a taxpayer to the state of Illinois, and given the damage that he did to our state's economy and the corruption of his administration, I think Rod Blagojevich deserves all 14 years and should serve all 14 years.
Okay, that's a perfect. I mean, I'm in no position to argue. It just struck me as a lot, but yeah, I mean, you certainly have standing to make that position. That's
Andrew,
what he
can
was
you
saying.
give us an idea when you talk about the cost of his crime? Can you give us some sort of an idea?
Yes. He raided a number of trusts for different departments and different agencies. The money in those trusts, those accounts, were supposed to be for those agencies and departments, but he raided them in order to get money for the general fund. For example, the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency was robbed of, I use the word robbed, of a good chunk of its endowment. It's not an endowment, but the money that it had in that fund. And that's just one example. He also, basically, he did a lot of damage, both financially and in terms of the government. For example, when he got angry at the various state legislators that would not support him, and so he shuttered the historic sites and parks in their districts. Wow. I'm sorry, that is a bit childish.
That's actually what we refer to now as Stenger-esque. So we understand what you're saying, Andrew.
So, Andrew, you'd be fair to look at people like us in Missouri and just say, pipe down with your opinion about a sentence, right?
We appreciate
the call, and thank you for calling and for watching.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's go to Bob in South County. Hi, Bob. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. In regards to Mr. Stenger, this was a felony he committed, and whatever he had coming to him from the county as far as pensions, health care, and any other gratuities, the man should not get a single penny for what he did to the citizens of St. Louis County. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. I'm thinking that's going to just be a matter, an up or down matter in the courts. What do you think? I mean, and people certainly have every right to weigh in. I'm just saying that I think it's going to come down to what the...
You think they're just going to follow...
I think the courts are just going to decide whether he's entitled to his pension or not. I mean, but no, I appreciate the call. I just I don't know what to think, but I don't think it...
In this particular instance, as I said tonight, Alvin is a man of great principle, in terms of disagreeing with all of the things that Stenger did so vociferously and still wanting him to see his pension. I don't want him to see his pension, but at the same time, I don't want his family to suffer.
All right,
Bob, we thank you.
Let's go to Melita in North County. Hello.
Hi, Melita.
Hi. I was calling in regards to the Normandy-Ladue situation with the school.
Yeah.
The students have been there over 6 years, and Ladue is the only district that did not come up with an agreement for the students. Everyone else did.
Right.
Right.
That's why I think they should.
I agree. If the other districts can make an agreement, I think they should kind of look into it and do the same thing also. Because the kids have been there for over 6 years, and some of the students we're speaking of are trying to go to high school.
Right.
After they made friends for 6 years and established a relationship with the Ladue family.
So you think it's not enough, Melita, that they're allowed to finish, whether it's elementary or, maybe middle school? You think they should just be allowed to graduate with the classmates and the friends that they've made, correct?
Correct, because the other district came to an agreement because they didn't want to alter that relationship they developed with the students.
Yeah, these are their kids. I mean, they've been at their school and they want to have them finish.
But I think Ladue, is going to. They're probably going to say it's lovely that the other districts came to these, to these conclusions and came up with these arrangements. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we will.
Of course not, and they don't have to. I just said, you look at what Clayton did. Clayton worked out some professional contracts with the Normandy School District.
Right.
And as people know, I'm a big fan of and I know this is not directly on point, I can't help but give a plug to Dr. Charles Pearson and the Normandy Collaborative because they are making progress.
They're making
and their
headway.
Intentions are so good.
But in terms of Ladue,
but back to this,
Ray,
I think they should do it. I'm sorry.
Then how do they not make exceptions?
All I know is
perpetuity.
Maybe they need to call Clayton and ask how they did it. But I just think that they should. But that's That's what's Donnybrook's
Melita,
about.
thank
We
you.
appreciate the call, Melita. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
very much. Let's go to Kathy in St. Louis County. Hi, Kathy. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Oh, hi, Wendy and Ray. Thanks for taking my call. I think we should have been talking around the table about inequity. Josh Hawley and Matt Blunt got to walk away. William Webster didn't get to walk away, did he? When he did what he did. So shouldn't it be a level playing field? And as far as Ann Wagner, my goodness, we had wrong ballots in our area, and Jay Ashcroft still hasn't done any audit. I think we need to talk about electoral fraud here, which is a constitutional crisis in the state of Missouri. Maybe the federal government needs to step in and take a hand and look at this. Wrong cards went out for people who had absentee ballots, wrong information on that, in addition to wrong ballots that went to people that were voting in November. So I think this is warranted and justified to take a look at, and also the inequity that is going on when people have committed crimes and they've walked away, but the crime is still there. So, something should be done or something should take place as far as taking them into court to see exactly, what transpired and whether or not they should be punished also.
I feel
who's walking away? I'm not sure I understand.
Josh Hawley and...
you got a lot of different
Josh
issues.
Hawley and Matt Blunt went out to political entities, lost millions of dollars for the people in the state of Missouri. They cost people, the lawyer that brought that to light in the office when Matt Blunt was governor, sued and won, which we had to pay on. Just like the gentleman in Illinois was saying, we have to pay out of our pockets.
Well,
why shouldn't...
Okay. Well, I'm no fan of either Josh Hawley or Matt Blunt as governor, but I'm not sure I understand that. I don't think they committed crimes. I mean,
no.
And so I think we're mixing
Well,
metaphors
Josh Hawley
here.
is still, I believe, Ray, is still under criminal investigation.
I don't think he's under
So
criminal.
why
That's
would
not
he
accurate. I think he's under campaign finance. There was at one point a campaign finance question, I think, that was with regard to him, but he's not under. And you could not find somebody that likes Josh Hawley less than me.
That's very true.
But he's not under criminal investigation.
And you're comparing this to Steve Stanger, Kathy?
Well, what I'm saying is inequity. I think I think everybody across the board wants equal justice, and that's what I'm bringing up.
All right,
well, Wendy, that's what I'm saying. But what about what happened to the mismanagement of the Attorney General's office?
Well,
Jay Barnes up in Jefferson City even sent a letter to the Attorney General's office, which there was no reply on as far as mismanagement of that office.
But we need to keep separate
mismanagement
people's
and criminal
arguments about mismanagement and criminality, and Steve Stanger, who, I feel terrible for. I mean, I know, he's getting, well, no, but he's getting what he deserved. But I mean,
I don't think he is.
Okay, but all right. Well, my point is, he is facing justice, I think, tomorrow. So we'll see what happens, and I do think he's, we'll have to see how it goes. But thank you for the call, Kathy. Let's go to the Twitterverse. To Craig Riggins, from Craig Riggins, I should say, it won't matter how much time Steve Stanger gets after Donald Trump pardons or commutes Rod Blagojevich. Stanger would be the next corrupt official in line to get that treatment. Not so sure, but we'll see. Who's next?
Thanks, Craig. At JDR 1949, Blago tried to raid the teacher retirement system, and this retired teacher thinks he should serve every day of his 14 years. Thank you at JDR 1949.
I'm starting to think I should back off with all the people with a dog in a fight.
Yeah.
Emory Cox 4. Normandy students might not get to finish out at Ladue. If we funded schools other than by direct local property taxes, this might not be an issue. That's a great point from Emory Cox 4. Please send your tweets to hashtag DonnybrookSTL.
Let's go to Mike in Creve Coeur. Hi, Mike. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn. Mike?
Hi, Mike. Do we have Mike?
Do we have Mike going once? Going twice.
Is this open mic night? Okay, let's go to John from Kirkwood.
Hi, John.
John?
Hi. Glad to be on.
Go ahead.
About the question of putting people in jail who are not a threat to society. Think back to Martha Stewart being in prison. It's ridiculous to spend our money that way. I have two suggestions for changing things. One is to get a blue ribbon panel of lawyers and citizens on a nationwide basis to find an alternate way to punish people who have done really bad things but aren't a threat to society. And you have to overcome the problem of cruel and unusual punishment. But I'd put them in an orange jumpsuit and give them work to do 40 hours a week, and then have them ankle confined or tracked during the time at no cost. That is, we're not going to pay them. They would simply work 40 hours a week doing things that do not displace other workers. And if that can't be worked out, then what they ought to do is when they put a person who is like that in prison, they should charge them the going rate, for example, here in St. Louis at the Ritz-Carlton, for every night they spend in jail. If you're going to jail them, make them pay for it.
Well, are you suggesting that there shouldn't be prison time for white-collar criminals?
That's what he's saying. But
Because,
he's saying
I mean,
if they are jailed, they should pay for
When
it.
you say a threat to society, I mean, we have a system already that is going to punish a poor person who steals a TV set
Right.
more than a wealthy person who steals millions of dollars or betrays the public trust. And while I think we incarcerate too many nonviolent people, particularly in the area of drugs, I don't know that I'm in favor of not having prison for white-collar criminals. Does that make sense?
Well, okay, but then charge them the going rate at
that's
the
fine.
Ritz-Carlton for every night they spend in jail.
Generally speaking, the federal statutes will relieve a defendant who has, when someone like Mr. Stanger has to come before a federal judge like Judge Perry, they will have disclosed all of their assets, and I suspect the judge will relieve them of whatever assets can be genuinely ascribed to the
debt,
the need for restitution.
Right.
Now, some people may want to, make every, obviously there's going to be different opinions about what that number should be, and you can't just say every contract that should have gone to somebody else is a direct loss of that amount of money to the county. But it's a complex calculation. But I think you can rest assured that restitution and monetary payments are part of this process.
Well, and John, in terms of nonviolent white-collar offenders, I go straight to Bernie Madoff, and he wreaked more havoc and cost so many people such misery. And the thought of him just paying for his stay in jail, I don't think that works for anybody. But we understand your
appreciate
position,
the call, though.
and we're happy that you phoned in with it. So
Thanks, John.
Thanks for watching.
Let's go to Joe from O'Fallon. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm a long time viewer, and I really enjoy the show.
Well,
Thank you.
As an educator, I just had to call in and comment on the Ladue situation. I guess my question is anyone asking these students, these young people, what they want to do?
Well, I thought in a couple of the cases in the article that the parents were speaking for the young people. Are you saying that maybe the young people are stronger than their parents give them credit for being?
No, I just really didn't know that in the conversation. And then every one of these kids is their own individual.
Mm-hmm.
They all have their own circumstances.
Right.
They all have their own upbringing, and a chance to go to school at Ladue. They've been there 6 years. They've developed all these friendships. Maybe some of them haven't, and maybe some of them would want to go right back to Normandy. I don't know.
Oh,
But I was just wondering if they had any say-so in the process.
Well, my guess is that, probably legally, they don't get to have one, okay? I mean, I think you raise an interesting point. I mean, certainly one would hope the parents would take that into account, and I don't know anything about this particular case, obviously, but I mean, it isn't actually until you get to be as a 21, basically, in Missouri, the student isn't going to be able to make that call for themselves.
Right.
But I think you're right that certainly the parents should take that into account. I mean, the students' wishes, I would think.
Well, the mother who was quoted at length in the article was heartbreaking, just absolutely heartbreaking. She was talking about how she and her mother were trying to find a studio apartment in the Ladue School District that would be affordable.
Right.
And
that's not an easy
No, of course it's not.
thing.
Of course it's not. But Joe, we
thank you for the call.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Lori in St. Louis. Hi, Lori. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi. Yeah, I just have a question. I'm calling from St. Louis, and about the Steve Singer or Stinger getting his pension or not getting a pension, and even the councilman or St. Louis alderman for that matter. So I don't understand why he served 10 years and he gets a pension when any other civil servant in the city or the county has to work at least 20 years. I just don't think it's right that someone voted in seems to get a pension after 1 or 2 terms. So what is Steve Singer's pension? What is it going to be? I know, firefighters got to do 20 to 30 years to get a full pension, and ultimately politicians are getting pensions after 2 terms, 1 term. So
well, in his
I don't think he should get a pension.
So his time on the county council, and how long was he?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now there's a I just went on the air last night, a county charter commission that's reviewing lots of issues. I don't know if they're looking at pensions or not.
They probably
as part
will
of
now.
The thing. But I will say this, to my point about the courts will decide, I don't think you can make pension decisions individually. In other words, I think that the law governs pensions.
Yeah.
And whatever the law is the law. Now, if you want to have a provision in the law that says
if you're convicted
of felony,
serving,
then that's the law. Then you do it. But you can't do it on a case-by-case basis based on how mad you might be about the last person that did it. I'm simply saying I don't think it's appropriate, and I doubt that it's lawful to decide, well, here's the provision. There's no provision in the law for taking this away, but we're going to do it for you. I don't think you can treat pensions like that. I could be, I've been wrong before.
I liked Alvin and Bill's point, though, about committing a crime while you're in office, while you are actually...
And I think they're right, and it probably should be part of the law, and for all I know it is, but if it isn't, you can't individualize pension policy. I think you have to treat everybody the same. That's all.
Thank you, Lori.
Let's go to Tom from Nashville, Illinois.
Hi, Tom.
That's not to be confused with Nashville, Tennessee, I assume.
No, it's Nashville, Illinois.
All right. How are you?
I ran a small business in southern Illinois when Mr. Blagojevich was the governor.
Uh-huh.
And I spoke out against some of his policies.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened to me should not ever happen to another person. I was sent a message that concerning me, he had a long memory. It was delivered to me through a state senator and the president of the bank where I did all my financing. And the next thing I knew, I had 3 state auditors going through everything about my business. One of the auditors even told me he was told to try to put me out of business. That's the kind of man Mr. Blagojevich is.
I'm going to take a wild guess.
He's in jail.
Tom, I think I'm going to take a wild guess and think you think he should do the full 14, right?
I think he should stay in there forever.
Okay.
He had no heart toward anyone.
Wow.
He was power mad. He would do anything to stay in power, and he is not a good person. As a human being, he's not a good person.
All right. Well,
That's
thank
my
you.
opinion.
That's an incredible.
Well, Tom, he wasn't
story.
he wasn't a good person when he went in, but we like to believe that even really bad people can be redeemed and changed in prison. Maybe some time to think. about what they've done.
We
So
get
I
it.
hope so for your sake, because that would give me nightmares. But thank you for calling,
If we
Tom.
get any more Illinois callers, I'm going to look. Is there like a room we can start walking back?
We ought to, yeah.
A walk back
All
room?
the way back.
Maybe he should do 14 years.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm not, wow. Let's go to the Twitterverse. Liz Will tweets, I think I might like Josh Hawley less than Ray does.
I don't know,
I don't know, Liz
Liz.
Will. We could have a battle about that
It's
one.
pretty strong.
But go for it.
At Annie Marie Berry, I'm a Normandy graduate class of 1974, and I agree with Charlie. The kids should be allowed to finish up their education at the school they went to when Normandy was unaccredited. Thanks, Ann.
That is a great point. Krista FM tweets, my nephew Tyler is one of the transfer students from Normandy. He should be allowed to continue at Ladue. To disrupt his education now will have a long-term, and I think would have long-term negative consequences. I say this as a former Normandy student and Ladue High School grad. Well,
Thank
that's
you,
interesting
Krista.
from Krista FM. And we welcome your tweets at hashtag Donnybrook STL. Who's next?
Let's go to Tom in St. Louis. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Welcome.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
You know, so many politicians are so corrupt. You know, I don't recall. I'm old now, but I don't recall so many in former years. Of course, we can say that about a lot of things. There's a lot of that with singers reminiscent of Grattan. You know, you remember when him and his wife, God forbid, were mugged over in the West End, and he was going to do all this for the crime and all this, and then look how it turned out with him. He was a bigger criminal than that young man that mugged him, and that's part of the problem. The difference in the people, they see a difference in the punishment, and I think that's
Okay, we're
Tom,
gonna have,
we're having trouble.
We're going to have a little technical. We have to call back in, but we do appreciate your call, Tom, from St. Louis. And let's go to William.
Was Stenger mugged, or was that Mrs. Greitens? Was Stenger mugged in the West End? I don't remember that. I thought that was Mrs. Greitens.
William from the city.
Hi, William.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for taking my call. A couple of weeks ago, I read an extremely insightful Riverfront Times article about Ann Wagner changing her attitude towards Mr. Trump.
I don't know where you would have
And I
seen
do hope Mr. Hartmann is premature, Ray, in your fears about having no opponent for that lady. And I use the term loosely.
Right.
I just had to make that point, and I really like the article in the RFT. I am in my 15th year of post-traumatic Hartmann therapy right now, and that's my comment for the
You're
evening.
so
Thanks
kind.
for the show.
Well,
Love you guys.
William, thank you
William.
for comments better than I deserve. My point, they will have an opponent. I just think that
You just think they should do it sooner rather than later.
In an era where fundraising and name ID is so important,
Yep.
there's no benefit for the Democrats, and in an era where the parties bringing in, whether it's Emily's List or whatever it is, bringing in funding, I think you don't benefit from waiting till the last minute. But that's, I've never been a member of a political party that would have me. So
I don't know.
William
if
is very kind.
I don't know. Thank you, William. I don't know if, and I agree with you 1,000%. I don't know if the power of incumbency is what it used to be. But
let's
but
wait.
this is a lot of incumbency.
And
with
Ann Wagner is very astute.
Yes,
and
she is.
qualified in the area of fundraising in particular. I mean, she was one of the co-chairs of the Republican National Chair. She was the first Missouri woman ever to head the Missouri Republican Party.
Yes.
She knows what she's doing. And she's a good person. I just think she has bad politics. And I wish the Democrats would run somebody. Let's go to Dave from Belnor.
Hi, Dave.
Dave, you're on the air.
Dave, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Dave.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're on.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was calling to comment on the Steve Stenger situation. I'm as disappointed as others in terms of his behavior, and I really wish, he had done better. I voted for him because of what things I had heard he had done early in his career in helping some underprivileged folks get help and assistance. And so at one point, I think he was a better person than what this recent behavior has displayed. And I also wonder how, he got to this point. I work in the corporate world, and we're constantly reminded of, ethics. And there's ethics courses we have to take to constantly remind us of what behaviors are inappropriate in the workplace. And I just have to believe if there was a culture within the government that constantly reminded those folks of what appropriate behavior was, it may have made somewhat of a difference. And maybe there is, and I'm not aware of it.
And Dave, you raised an interesting question there, interesting point. Thank you, as so many of our callers do. But I think that one of the, and we don't really have the answer for, is someone in Steve Stanger's position, did they come into office the way that he is, or was it the power that corrupted him? We'll have to, that'll
maybe
have to
Judge
be the
Perry,
last.
maybe Judge Perry will ask him that question
I
tomorrow
suspect she
in
will.
his sentencing.
And we will thank all of you for joining us. See you again next Thursday night.
Have a great weekend.